Okay, so before the video starts, I just want to let you guys in on my brain over the last month and a half. So originally I was going to make a bunch of separate videos on this franchise, but I ultimately decided to just do the whole Thq series in one video, which includes the 3 games, the TV show, and a bunch of other little things in between. Well, let's begin. To start this off right, I feel we have to start at the beginning. And you may be thinking that the beginning is here, but Thq's official first appearance was actually in a completely different game. It was in Rocket Power Beach Bandits. This little cameo appearance happened over a full year before this character would receive his own game. I'd like to think of Thq as a cryptid in this game. We have things like Bigfoot, Mothman, that hairy fish, but the world of Rocket Power doesn't get Bigfoot. It got this smelly little boy. Also, assuming Thq is a cryptid, it makes these posters hanging around town a lot more ominous. What is he planning? Thq also made a couple cameo appearances in Rugrats Royal Ransom, still before the release of his debut title. I feel it's pretty common knowledge that Sonic the Hedgehog's first appearance wasn't in his own game, but I feel like I never hear anybody talk about Thq. Now, Nickelodeon has been a little neglectful with this character, and while I do hope that Thq might return one day, I feel it's very unlikely. I'll return to the subject towards the end of the video, but at this moment in time, I think it's time to get into the first time gamers could get their dirty Cheeto hands on this character. To start, we'll begin with Thq in the Power of Juju. Now, first things first, what is Juju? So Juju refers to both magical deities that can be summoned to help whomever may have summoned them, but the word Juju also refers to magic in this world. Are you getting this? There's a lot going on here. So the way we differentiate these two things is simple. A Juju is basically an all-powerful being there to help you along on your quest. I personally like my little comparison is referring to these guys like warlock patrons. Juju magic is, as far as I can tell, anything magic related whatsoever. The magic doesn't have to be given to you by a Juju. In the first game, it's given to you by these little items you can find along your journey. Now, these items that unlock you new spells are, for the most part, completely unnecessary. You at no point in this game need to use these spells. In fact, other than testing them out when I first collected them, I think there were only 2 of these that I actually used during this entire playthrough. First, I used the radar spell, which points the feather on top of your head at any collectible items that are near you. Then I think the most common one I used was the one that healed me, and it wasn't because I needed healing at the time, because the punishment for death in this game is damn near non-existent. You see, when Thq loses all his health, he simply just respawns at a nearby location. There is no reason for you to ever worry about losing all your health. The reason I was using the healing spell was because during the last section of the game, you get an item that boosts your speed, but it only does this when you're at full HP. Now, as far as all the other spells you can get are concerned, I admittedly don't remember them. I never used them. There was one where you could turn enemies into chickens, but it costs a large amount of feathers to cast. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, you don't have a magic meter that gets drained when you cast Juju magic like the following 2 games. Your magic supply is based on the amount of feathers you've collected. Luckily, these things are everywhere, so once I decided not to turn enemies into chickens, I never had to worry about magic consumption. At the end of the day, Thq and the Power of Juju is a fairly underwhelming 3D platformer, but that doesn't mean this has 0 value. This game established what is probably the most important part of the entire franchise. It's funny. I'm being completely serious. As a 25-year-old, I still got plenty of laughs out of this game. Now, I'm not saying every joke hits home, because, well, they don't. There's plenty of bits in this game that lean a bit too far into juvenile potty humor, but in this game's defense, it was being published as a Nickelodeon title, so they had to try and cater to a very young audience. And one thing this franchise definitely has going for it is that each installment of the first 3 games is funnier than the last. And I know I said this game is underwhelming, and I stand by that, but that doesn't mean there isn't anything good here gameplay-wise. You see, pretty early on in this game, Tak gets a new weapon, a big stick. You can use said stick like a pole vault to jump higher over certain obstacles, and switching between your two weapons is seamless and in no way intrusive to gameplay. All you do is press the right trigger and you will immediately swap weapons, and there's not much delay between swapping them, so it's pretty much as smooth as butter. Now let's get back to the main parts of the game. The game opens up with a young Tak in the presence of the mighty shaman of the pupanunu people, Jabulba. We find out that all the villagers have been turned into sheep by the evil shaman Tlaloc, just as the pupanunu prophecy foretold. The prophecy said that a mighty warrior would rise to defeat this evil shaman, but there's one problem. This mighty warrior, known as Locke, has also been turned into a sheep. So it's up to Tak to run around and gather everything Jabulba needs to make Locke human again, so he can rise up and defeat the evil Tlaloc. To help guide us on this adventure, we are joined by a Juju named Flora, who is pretty much the equivalent of Link's Navi in this game. The first thing we have to do is collect 10 plants for Jabulba so he can turn Locke back into a human, and he can become the mighty warrior he was always destined to be. Also, these 10 plants that you have to collect, you get them after fighting a plant boss, but this boss only gives you 1 plant, which means you have to run out and fight 10 of the same boss in 10 different locations. But whatever, fine, I got all of them. So let's just get back to Jabulba's hut and then we can get Locke back.
But this is not Locke, it's Tobar, Locke's squire!
This isn't what I signed up for. I thought the collectathon was gonna save the day. Wait. Okay, so this flat JPEG on the floor reveals what actually happened to Locke. You see, he wasn't turned into a sheep, he was trampled to death by a whole horde of sheep. And in order to revive him, we just have to go out and collect 100 Yorbles. 100? I thought 10 was a lot, and now you're telling me I have to go out and collect 100 items? You know what? Okay, fine. All you have to do is go back to the previous areas you've been to in the game, go farther into them, and collect more. To be honest, while this sounds like a grueling task, it's actually not that bad. There's definitely way more than 100 of these out there, because as long as you're kinda looking for them, you'll just find enough. I'm into this. While collecting these Yorbles isn't the most exciting thing in the world, some of these missions in the game are legitimately fun. A couple ones of note are this one where you run through a cave with ease, but at the end there are mummies that you have to guide back through the cave. This isn't necessarily hard, but a decent fun puzzle. You have to do this with 4 separate mummies, and the first one is easy enough, but going into the next 3 temples you already have an idea of what's going on, so on the way to the mummy you can examine and start to plan accordingly. Another standout is the second half of the Chicken Island. Now there isn't a ton of interesting stuff going on here, but the one thing to note is this is the location where Tak first dons his mighty chicken suit. I personally can't separate Tak from this chicken suit. For me, this is a super iconic part of this character. You get to fly across large gaps that you obviously normally couldn't cross, and also drop explosive eggs to destroy small structures and take out pretty much all of the enemies with ease. I love this chicken suit. Other than this being the first location this outfit shows up, this level is just a linear platformer level. It's definitely fun to just play through. Other than collecting all the Yorbles in order to progress, we also need to go into the spirit world to collect Locke's soul. You see, the spirit world is cool because you have to enter the spirit state to see and use hidden platforms. Being in the spirit state is fine enough, but the problem is when you enter this mode, the screen flashes in different colors. This totally doesn't give me a gigantic headache. Thank you, game. When we eventually find Locke, we find out that apparently souls of the deceased in this world are trapped inside balloons, which is a funny visual, but also the souls speak with a very high-pitched voice.
Tak, I'm so glad you're here.
I need help. I know, Locke. I'm gonna take you back to Jabulba, and he's gonna put you back in your body.
Yeah, but first I got this terrible itch. Can you scratch my head?
We don't have time.
Come on, I can't reach it.
Okay, once again, I did it. I got your 10 plants, I got your 100 Yorbles, and I got Locke's soul. Can we please move on now? Okay, it seems that Locke, even though he's revived, is still out of commission because being brought back from the dead makes you shit yourself for an undisclosed amount of time. So now instead of Locke going out and collecting the 3 moonstones, I have to go get them so he can proceed to fight Tlaloc. Something I forgot to mention about this game, and this whole series for that matter, is it has a somewhat small focus on the help of animals. If you could guess, its sheep are part of that. These little guys are mostly used to be on treadmills to open doors, but sometimes you can use them to keep boars' attention. If you don't have a sheep and you run into a boar, well... Okay, little editor's note, they're actually rams in the first game. They do get replaced by boars in the other 2 titles, though. Another famous one is the rhino. These fellows are used for breaking barriers that are blocking your path. I think rhinos get more of a focus in the 3rd Tak game, but we'll get there. The last one, admittedly, is my favorite. It's the orangutans. These ape bastards will pull trees down to eat, and you just hop on, and they fling you across great distances. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's get back to the game. The trials you go through for the Moonstones are mostly just solving puzzles. You have this chicken one that took me forever. Genuinely, I think at least 20% of my total playtime in this game was in this chicken section. It's honestly kind of hard. You have to run around and collect golden eggs, which are used as keys for you to use this giant mechanism to climb to the top of the chicken temple. Pretty much every puzzle in here is easy, except for the last one. I swear to you, it took me at least 40 minutes to get this last golden egg, and I don't know if that says something bad about the game, or for my skills as an epic gamer. After collecting each moonstone, you go into a fight with pins and needles. They show up pretty early on in the game, but are just a couple goons for Tlaylock, and don't hold that much importance to the story. But these boss fights are pretty enjoyable. The chicken one has you launching explosive eggs to pop balloons on their, blimp? Yeah, I'm gonna go with blimp. I really don't know what else to call this thing. Another boss fight has you ride on top of a phoenix as you duel it out with projectiles. This one goes on maybe just a bit too long for my liking, but it's still decently fun. The final pins and needles boss fight has us competing in a game of DDR. You just press the button it says to press, and that's it. Not super interesting, but I definitely appreciate it. Even though you aren't doing much, it's still pretty engaging. And finally, after all that, I have everything. I got your 10 plants, I got your 100 Yorbles, and I got your 3 Moonstones. Can we please send Locke to fight Tlaylock now?
Tak, give Locke the Juju magic you have collected. He must go and defeat Tlaylock and fulfill the prophecy.
Oh, don't you listen to him, Tak.
But Locke is...
Dead wrong.
the mighty warrior.
Says who?
I trained him.
You wasted your time.
But the prophecy says...
Doesn't say anything about Locke. Tak is the mighty warrior of the Pupanunu people's prophecy.
What?
I'm the mighty warrior?
Of course. You've done everything that the prophecy says the mighty warrior will do.
Of course, Tak was the chosen one. Obviously, the game wasn't gonna just not have you fight the big bad. That would be really weird, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. The Moon Juju just warps us straight to Tlaylock, and as somebody who can pause the game, this is fine, but come on, does this little guy really deserve that? Give the homie some time to prepare. The final boss of this game is actually pretty exciting and fun. We get turned into a bunch of different animals, which helps us guide ourselves along this path. I like being a chicken and a rhino. Using the skills of familiar animals that helped guide us along the path to get here in the first place is actually a really neat idea. Sadly, Flora gets to be the orangutan. I'm pretty jealous about that. Maybe I just wanted to be the big ape, but whatever. I'm totally not upset about it. Tlaylock gets turned into a sheep and Flora sends him into a giant flower pod, being launched in the air and then falling next to a group of boars who might like him a little bit too much for comfort. And then the game just kind of ends. It's very abrupt and weird, but there's still 2 more games to talk about, so I can't worry about it too much. Okay, it's time for the second game, Tak 2 in the Staff of Dreams. I'm gonna be completely honest about this one. Out of all 3 games I played, this one is absolutely the best one. It's not my favorite as I still hold the 3rd game dear to my heart, but I think from a gameplay perspective, this one is for sure the best. The game opens up with Tak being asleep. We are guided by a voice telling us there's a beautiful princess that's being held captive by the Dream Guardian. We're told it's up to us to make it through the dream world and rescue this beautiful princess. Now this game is split up into 2 different sections, the dream world and the real world. The dream world, if you can believe it, takes place in Tak's dreams. This is where he must find the princess and take the Staff of Dreams. Tak, on the other hand, is kind of worried about how his dreams work, so in the real world, awake world? You know what, yeah. In the awake world, the goal is to meet up with Jabulba's brother, JB. Supposedly, JB is a dream expert, so he might be able to help with what's going on. Immediately, this game has a different feel to the first one. By that I mean, it feels considerably better to play. The first one wasn't bad or anything, but within 5 minutes of playing this game, it was noticeably better. The most obvious change they made was the jumping. You see, in the first game, you just got a normal double jump, but in Tak 2, the double jump has been replaced with a gliding jump. Just like Tak's chicken suit, I also heavily associate this kind of double jump with this game. I simply can't imagine it without it. It makes platforming so much easier, not that it was exactly hard in the first one, but still, it was a great idea. Clearly, the developers thought so too, because it returns in the third game. The combat also got a little upgrade. Nothing too crazy, but once again, this is another noticeable change. Now let's talk about another main difference in this game. I don't think I mentioned it before, but the first Tak was kind of an open world game. The world wasn't necessarily big, but you got to pick where you wanted to go next. Tak 2, on the other hand, is 100% linear. Now, to be clear, this isn't really a negative. I think the game does pretty well with what it has going on. Animals play an even bigger role in this game, and you are given a new skill to help use them. You see, you're always carrying Jabulba in this game. He's riding around in your pocket because he used his Juju magic to turn himself into a flea. You can use said Jabulba flea to throw at animals and either bite them or put them to sleep. Some animals will simply attack you if you get too close, so in this case it's best just to put them asleep. But sometimes if you bite them, they'll move to another location or trigger some sort of mechanism to help you out. Also, because Jabulba is constantly with you, he takes the role as Navi in this game instead of Flora. But don't you worry, Flora is still in this game. There's actually a couple of new and returning Jujus. Some of the new ones that are worth mentioning is the Belly Juju, who is honestly my favorite. His head has the mind of a newborn while his stomach does all of the sophisticated talking. I actually think this is a super funny concept, and I'm doubling down here. Belly Juju is the best Juju. Don't at me. Then we also have the mind-reading Juju. Now I'll give you about 5 seconds to guess what this guy does. Okay, did you get it? Yeah, he fucking reads minds. Honestly, the more I think about it, this Juju is mid. Sorry if this is your favorite. It's okay, people are wrong every day. But on the subject of the mind-reading Juju, he's the one that gives you these rocks. You can use these to cross large gaps in the world. Just grab on and Tak takes off. You only need these in the first place because Locke destroys this bridge you need to cross. Oh yeah, Locke. So Locke is a full-on side character in this one. I mean, he was there in the first game, but this one really takes advantage of him as a huge gag. He's honestly hilarious and an absolute treat every time he's on screen. And let me tell you, he's on screen a lot in this game. And so is the dead Juju, who is a party-obsessed skeleton man in a Hawaiian shirt. This is peak character design. Okay, this is the only time I'll say this because it could come up multiple times. A lot of Jujus I show or mention were in the first game, but I didn't talk about them because their appearance really didn't do much for me. But in this one, while they are the same characters, they're used in ways that I think are better and more memorable. The skeleton guy is the first example of that, but there will be at least 1 or 2 more. The developers must have thought this guy was great because, like Locke, he's also a reoccurring character in this game. I'm not saying I dislike this guy, but he's for sure no Belly Juju. The spells in this game were also completely different. Instead of being a bunch of mostly useless shit that I barely remember, a lot of the spells in the game are simplified to be directly built into Tak's normal kit. I still wouldn't say that any of them are that interesting, but I definitely use them a lot more. They're mostly just upgrades to Tak's attacks. Oh man, that's a sentence. The one that I definitely use the most, however, is the one that boosts your speed. You just hold left trigger and Tak gets engulfed by a magical aura and everything you do is improved. Another reason this is better is because you get an actual magic meter in this game. It's no longer linked to the amount of feathers you collected. The meter is so much better since it refills passively. You don't have to manage this bizarre resource, so I found myself using spells in this game more often. One last thing about spells in this game. They aren't collectibles anymore. You're rewarded for them by simply progressing through levels. But you kind of have to look out for this upgrade since it's a little subtle when you unlock them.
Congratulations, Tak. Your shaman powers have increased.
So we make it across this bridge that Locke destroyed, and I can't wait to see what this game has in store. Oh great, we're We're back in the Dream World. So as far as I can tell, the Dream World missions mostly feel like tutorials, especially in the beginning. They also aren't nearly as long as the Awake World levels. I wish I could say more about this place, since it is a big part of the game, but admittedly it's less interesting than the normal stages. To be honest, that might be because Tak is alone in here. He bounces off really well with some of the other characters, but the only thing here is him and the nightmare creatures. The designs of a lot of these guys are actually pretty cool. In fact, a lot of the enemies in this game stand out. This is the game where the Woodies make their first appearance, and I fucking love these guys. The Woodies for me are definitely the most memorable enemy from my childhood, and I'm glad that these were the guys they chose to return in the next game. In fact, I like these guys so much, I wish there was a whole stage about their camp. Fuck. This level opens up with an arena to fight different types of Woodies in. And wouldn't you know it, they're all awful, except for the catapults. Those things killed me on multiple occasions. Oh, by the way, this game is definitely funnier than the last. I generally think that this is Locke's doing because, I don't know man, I just really like this character. So you know what, here's a compilation of Locke in this game.
Now with your only means of escape destroyed, you have no choice but to deal with the warrior Locke. Oh, hey! Not so fast. Whoa! Oh! Let's go easy on the Locke. Hey, Tak! Come back here! Why don't you feed me another lollipop? Because you're disgusting.
There's nothing inside the box.
Who are you calling nothing? Did somebody drop this cool stick?
May I have that, please?
Sure.
No!
Now the game really only has one level that I would consider bad, and that's when you finally make your way inside JB's house. You see, according to Jabulba, his brother has learned about a new form of Juju magic called technology. This level is pretty much just running around, flipping switches, and clearing gunk off of tubes. The gunk on them is constantly placed on wires by new enemies called gunkies. Now this wouldn't be so bad if you could destroy the gunky eggs, but unless you're in a cannon, they are completely invulnerable. The puzzles in here either aren't very exciting or just take too long to complete. But at the end of the day, one bad level isn't all that awful. Even if this is where I got stuck as a kid. So we get to JB and free him from the gunkies, and this is where the mystery is finally revealed. We know he goes by JB, but what does that stand for?
Tak, I'm JB, Jabulba's brother.
That's funny.
What's funny?
Well, your name, JB, and you're Jabulba's brother. It's his same initials.
That's not funny. That is my name, Jabulba's brother. Mother didn't even bother to think of a name for me.
His birth name is Jabulba's brother. That's fucking hilarious. But now that we're here, he can help us figure out this dream world stuff. But we need to fall asleep first. If only there was a way to quickly fall asleep.
Sleep now!
Yeah, okay, I guess that was pretty effective. Alright, this is it. Time to tango with the Dream Guardian and rescue the princess. Princess, I'm here to save you. Pins and needles? If only there was a way to have known that Tlaylock was behind this the whole time. Oh, what? You could hear him baaing at the beginning of the game? Oh, and I guess there were those sheep hooves with the crystal ball trying to make me fall asleep, but how was I supposed to know those were red flags? Tak starts fighting with pins and needles to take the Staff of Dreams, and I know it's a little hard to tell, but they end up breaking it in half. So now, they have one half of the staff, and I have the other. Now we're about to enter the final section of the game, but before that, the Moon Juju appears and offers to help. She can grant us one of 4 abilities to select, which will give us an insanely powerful new Juju spell. The last levels of this game are completely built around flora and fauna, giving Tak the ability to transform into animals that he's used to get him to where he is now. You see, pins and needles are leaving portal shards. No. Rift pieces. Pins and needles are trying to flee using their half of the staff to create these portals to escape Tak. Presumably because their staff is incomplete, when they create these portals, it leaves the rift pieces behind to go and collect. And once you get enough of them, you can rebuild the portal they use to keep the chase up. Now, some of these animals feel more useful and fun than the others. The flying squirrel allows you to use gusts of wind, sending you high in the sky and allowing you to cross large gaps. Then you also get the bear, who lets you slide on your ass down a hill. You see, Tak can't slide down a hill because it hurts him for some reason. The next one is the frog, where you can use his tongue like this weird grappling hook thing and jump between large bugs in the air. And finally, we have the boar, who makes it to where you can walk next to a boar so they don't attack you. Oh, it can also break stuff like the rhino from the previous games, but this one's kind of boring. One thing I did think was funny is that there's a spot in the last level where an air geyser shoots you up really high, but I guess the developers only thought Tak would go in this thing because I was the bear when I entered it, and the model is clearly just not built for this. Just look at him go. So majestic. We finally catch up to Pins and Needles, but since there's really nothing to stop them from running away again, we gotta hit them where it hurts. The feelings.
Pins is a poopy head. Ha!
The Pins and Needles boss fight of this game is okay. They constantly jump back and forth between portals and shoot juju blasts at you the whole time, but apparently they don't use their eyes because if you just stand at the edge of the arena, you can't be hit unless the blue projectiles come out since those ones track you. Pins and Needles send almost everything out in the book at you. The final part of this boss fight has them coming out as explosive illusions, and only one of them is right. I decided to just meathead my way through this whole section, and just like that, it's time for Tlaylock. All thanks to Locke. Also, Jibulba has a lightsaber, apparently. The final boss of Tlaylock consists of 3 sections. First up is the evil sheep army, where you can just push them and Tlaylock off a cliff. He comes back and drags us into the dream world where we both transform into dream guardians. Phase 2 of this boss is pretty neat. We have to catch the blast that the evil shaman throws at us and throw them right back. Nothing crazy is going on here, but it's still really fun. We get the staff put back together and return it to the real dream guardian, where the credits slowly start to roll. Now, after seeing this, I was just thinking, okay, great, it just ends as abruptly as the first game, and then I press stop recording. But then the credits stop and Tlaylock returns, so I quickly scramble to start again. Tlaylock accepts that he cannot defeat Tak directly and says, fuck it, and just starts trying to kill all of his friends that have been on this journey with us. And this is for real the last section. We take control over the 3 characters, Jibulba, Dead Juju, and Locke. Luckily for me, they all play the exact same as Tak, so it's as simple as play his little combat trials and slap him. The final cutscene shows Tak waking up at the beginning of the game and says it was all a dream. Or was it? So, okay. Tak may not be known for its great conclusions to games, because just like the first one, this one is kinda bad. But you know what? There's still room for improvement. There's still a whole nother mainline Tak game to play, and with that, I think it's time to get into what I would consider my favorite game of all time. This is not a bit. I really love this game. It's time for Tak in the Great Juju Challenge. Now, before we start getting into this game, I want to give a little bit of lore, which is probably part of why I remember it so fondly. Now, this game released in 2005 and was one of the first actual video games I ever owned. But you see, my family didn't get internet till maybe 2 or 3 years later, so at the time there wasn't exactly an obvious way to find information on new games, especially as a 7-year-old. I actually have an identical twin brother, so anytime we would get a new game, it was really important that they would be multiplayer. Now, I couldn't find it exactly, but this is a vivid memory in my head. You see, games once upon a time used to come with manuals inside that would tell you controls and things like that. And I remember towards the back of these manuals, you would sometimes find advertisements for other games by the same company. Now, I couldn't find it exactly, but I think I pieced it together. So Nickelodeon games would get promoted in manuals of other Nickelodeon games. You know, that just makes sense. It took some digging, but I eventually found this online manual for SpongeBob SquarePants the movie, and on the back, I found this advertisement for Tak 2 and the Staff of Dreams. Tak 2 actually released a couple weeks before this SpongeBob game, so they clearly want to show recent releases in the back of these manuals. So whatever child sees this can just go and ask their parents to pick up the game, and then there it is. So I was thinking about other Nickelodeon games I had at the time, and I think I found it. So another game I had was SpongeBob SquarePants Lights Camera Pants, and Tak 3 released exactly 1 month before this game. I did find a manual for this game, but the back of it just had some generic THQ promotion for their website. All of the Tak games were published by THQ, and I think this was the only SpongeBob game me and my brother had at the time, so there must have been an alternate version of this manual that had the game in the back of it. Now that I'm saying all this out loud, there could have been an additional slip of paper with the manual in the case also promoting the game. I quickly took to eBay to see how much a brand new sealed version of this game was, and it may be a little outside of my budget for something that I'm not even sure is real. Okay, no wait, I found this image of the Game Boy version and it looks like included with it is a little advertisement, and wouldn't you know it, there he fucking is! Tak was included with this SpongeBob game. Okay, now I'm positive this is where I found this game. Sorry for the whole tangent, I was writing this part as I was searching. Anyway, the point is my parents reasonably asked if we could both play this game, and to us the answer was obviously yes. We absolutely didn't actually know that, and I'm sure the logic was just because two characters were visible on this image, and I specifically remember it having the image of the cover art which features both Tak and Locke. Luckily enough, though, the game was entirely built to be played with two people. And also luckily, I spawned on this earth with somebody to play it with. So our parents got home and they actually did end up getting this game that we saw in our little advertisement. So to be absolutely clear, I am horribly biased towards this game. But with that being said, let's get into it. So Tak in the Great Juju Challenge takes damn near all of its gameplay mechanics from the previous entry. There isn't really a noticeable difference in the way this game feels compared to the previous one, and honestly, that's fine. I think Tak 2 felt really solid, and this game does as well. Obviously, the devs thought they did a pretty good job with the previous one, or else they wouldn't have decided to build this game entirely around it. The main difference with this game is obviously that it's built for co-op. Player 1 plays Tak and Player 2 plays Locke. And while after playing this game again, I do think it's linear in a worse way to the previous one. A lot of the levels follow a similar structure. Run around a small area, defeat the enemies in said area, and once they are defeated, you can light a torch that opens the path to move forward. Now, there are some breaks in this formula that I'll go over later, but I think the standout part of this game is simply the dynamic between Tak and Locke. You see, Locke is your typical big dumb guy, while Tak is more level-headed. I don't think I'd call Tak specifically smart, but Locke is definitely no competition to him in the brains department. They bounce off of each other very well, and while they can be a little mean to one another, it doesn't come across as malicious. It really does feel like they enjoy being together. Now with this dynamic, I can confidently say this is by far the funniest of the three games. A standout example is when the game tells you that Locke can't go into water.
Oh, there's no way around. Ah, it's okay, we'll just swim across.
Can't do it, won't do it.
It's not deep, Locke. We can make it. What's the problem?
It's what's in the water. Fish hate me.
That's ridiculous.
You're right. Feels great. Well, I don't know why they hate me so much. I have never wronged a fish.
Now, it would have been easier to just say that Locke straight up can't swim, but instead they took this ridiculous route, and it adds a lot of flavor for me. They want Tak and Locke to have different sets of skills so they can use them to build proper puzzles out of it. Yes, Locke can't swim, but he can climb vines along walls because of how strong he is, whereas Tak can't because, well, he's small. He's a little guy. The premise of the Great Juju Challenge is obviously very important to the game, so let me break it down. The Great Juju Challenge is held every 60 years, and whichever tribe wins gets the favor and protection of the Moon Juju until the next competition 60 years later. There are 4 teams competing in this tournament. Obviously, we have Tak and Locke representing the Pupanunu people. Next, we have Jib and Jab of the Jibba Jabba tribe. Third up, there's Stone Crusher and Thunder Fist of the Gramazon tribe. And lastly, we see Bartog and Krug repping the Black Mist tribe. The Black Mists are actually the antagonists of this game. Slaylock actually appears later and admits that the Great Juju Challenge is more important than the rivalry he has with Tak, so he takes a back seat because if these two lose, it'll also affect him. So the way the Juju spells work in this game are also different. Instead of collecting them or getting them in the middle of stages, you actually get them between levels. After every single level, there is a cutscene of either the other 3 teams or other characters visiting and granting you new spells spells or helping in other ways like increasing your damage or health. So in this game, there are missions you have to do after completing a handful of normal ones called the Proving Grounds. Now these are not exactly the most enjoyable. They're basically a giant demolition derby between the other competitors, and this is how it's determined what teams get eliminated from the competition. At first, I thought these cars were a little hard to control, but honestly, after a while, I got used to it. While the controls are a little wonky, it's not that bad. The rules are simple. Crash into the enemy teams and get points. The team with the lowest amount of points gets eliminated. The game sees the return of the chicken suit, which mostly plays the same as the first game, but it would be a little selfish of Tak to be the only one to get a fun costume, so don't you worry, Locke gets a little something for himself as well.
The Lock called it first, the Lock gets it.
Do you know what that is, Locke?
Yes, it's mine.
It's for underwater exploration. And it's all yours. Too bad I'm not tall enough to wear that suit. Sure glad you are. Thanks, big buddy.
I hate you.
Now, I'm going to be completely honest. I think the whole underwater thing is a decent enough idea and a good change of pace for the game, but you see, Locke has to use his pinchers to make barrels float to the surface, that way Tak can cross. I know I said Tak could swim earlier, and while yes, he can, you see, he isn't really built for gator-infested water, so Locke has to help. Now this would be all good and fine, but it usually takes multiple attempts to cut strings holding the barrels down because the hitbox on his claws is absolutely awful. It doesn't hurt the game very much, but it's still an obvious point where a little more polish would have been nice. The game still has animals to help you along the way, but they have a much smaller role than the previous two games. If you see vines, you need a rhino to break them, but usually the rhino is simply right next to them. The standout animal in this game, without a doubt, is the gorilla named Vanessa, who is obsessed with Locke. You have to be smelly to get her to leave, and if you don't, she grabs hold of Locke and takes him to her nest. It's a very simple obstacle, but she is by far the most iconic animal encounter. I mean, she's even on the box art. I didn't mention it before, but all the levels in this game are on a timer. It honestly doesn't matter that much because you would have to really go out of your way to let this thing hit 0. At the end of every level, you're graded on how quickly you beat each level. These points really only determine what order each team gets to pick their car in the proving grounds. You don't really need to be in the lead, and during the final proving ground, the Black Mist gets a new car that is said to be the best one, but they cheat to get it, so it doesn't matter what place you're in on the leaderboard. Now you see, a little over halfway through the game, the Black Mist does a little cheating switcheroo by replacing Krug with the Black Juju secretly. I don't know why they weren't immediately disqualified after this was revealed to the entire public, but whatever, I'm not the TO, not my call. You can actually figure out what happened to Krug by going back and playing an older level. He offers you a hammer to help you along the way, as they kinda just ditched him out here, and this man is spiteful. Now this doesn't affect anything except Locke gets an additional weapon upgrade, but little secret content is actually something I appreciate. The first team to be eliminated is the Gramazons after being sabotaged by the Black Mist, who made it appear like they were cheating. I don't know why the standard wasn't held the same for them when they did it, but whatever, once again, I'm not the tournament organizer. The next to go is the Jibba Jab tribe, and they just lost during Demolition Derby. Once the only teams left were Pupanunu and the Black Mist, they reveal once they win, they will use their power to burn Tak and Locke's entire village to the ground, so now all of a sudden, the stakes just got a lot higher. The last couple missions of the game take things that you dealt with the entire game and combine them, so there's missions where Tak dons the chicken suit while at the same time Locke needs to wear his lobster outfit. The final level is pretty simple while using a pretty interesting way of separating the two characters, but still having them help each other even though there's a huge wall between them. This level also has a very cringe cutscene, and listen, if I had to endure this, so do you. Enjoy!
All this running around is churning up some major gas.
My name is Tak, and that's a fact. Don't give me no lip or I'll attack. Doing this challenge is really tough. The Black Mist stink, and they play rough. But it don't matter, we don't mind, cause in the end, we're gonna kick behind. Time is running, it's going tick-tock, so I'll hand it over to my main man, Locke.
I'll take that bead and Locke's my name. Eating dung beetles is my claim to fame. Don't laugh at me, I'll punch your skull. And when I eat food, it makes me full. Fish are stupid, they smell like poop and shabba shoop doop dee doop. My rhyming's done, don't give me no frown. Just do one thing and break it down. Thq, I never knew you were cool. I think we just bonded. Do you want a hug?
No.
Me neither, so quit asking me.
Okay, after that, it's finally time to end things with the Black Mist, and I bet you think this is gonna be a pretty neat and cool boss fight between these two teams, and don't you worry. It's fucking Demolition Derby again, except this time they continue to cheat by making their score tied with yours, and they get away with this twice before somebody notices. You have to beat them 3 times in a row, and after this glorious timer runs out and you hear those wonderful words,
Black Mist Tribe has been eliminated.
what? There's no cutscene involving them whatsoever? We just go back to the same party, except nobody's here because the tournament used up its whole budget, and that's how the game ends? Well, even after all that, for whatever reason, I still like this ending. So it's probably obvious I didn't play this game by myself. I actually played it with my wife, and because I'm so biased towards this game, I think it's important to talk about the experience from the perspective of somebody who has never played it before. Now, out of the gate, it's pretty safe to say that overall she didn't really enjoy it, which is completely fair. Probably her biggest issue is just the overall repetitiveness of the game. Like I said earlier, probably about 80% of this game is simply run into one area, beat up the generic baddies, and then that allows you to move on into the next area. Another big issue she had was just the plot, or rather, the bizarre lack of it. You see, you really only get moments that move the story forward probably every 3 or 4 levels, which on paper isn't that bad, but the game is really short. There are only about 15-ish levels to complete, so what little plot progression the game has only comes maybe 3 or 4 times. Also, the antagonists of this game don't really stand out. The biggest shakeup is when Krug gets replaced, but his replacement is a complete incel. Also, just a side note, my theory is that this guy could also be Thq's dad. Stick around till we get to the show, and I'll bring that up again. She wished there were more interactions with the MILF Juju. Those are her words, not mine. Which is really just part of a larger problem. The Jujus aren't in this game. They're these powerful gods with interesting designs and unique personalities, and you really only see them for about 40 seconds each. They only show up to give Thq or Locke a magical upgrade every 3 levels or so, which, by the way, my wife straight up forgot to use 90% of the time. Okay, enough of the plot issues. The biggest issue she pointed out is that the game really doesn't take advantage of the multiplayer aspect. The puzzles that Thq and Locke have to solve with their own individual strengths and weaknesses is pretty slim to none. Now, there are examples where teamwork is needed and interesting. For example, I really like the last level where the two are separated by the large wall, and they have to work together with switches and stuff to help each other out. Is a really fun co-op puzzle. However, usually when the two need to work together, it's to light these torches. Very quickly, torches you have to light to progress are put up on these tall stands, which makes it to where Locke has to throw Thq up on them. So it makes the game feel like splitting 2 characters up to, maybe go through different paths is kind of punished simply because at the end of the day, Thq and Locke literally need to be touching to complete sections. So that's all the mainline Thq games covered, but before we get into the show, I feel it's worth mentioning that Thq actually still has 2 more games, Thq Mojo Mistake and Thq The Guardians of Gross. Now admittedly, these games don't follow the main canon of the other 3, so I'm not going to cover them. I'm sure you noticed, but these 2 also use the same render of Thq on each cover, which feels really fucking lazy. They also released about a week apart from each other, so I think these games were intended to be linked together in some way. I did look up footage of both these games, and admittedly, I just didn't see anything to draw me in, but there is still more Thq to talk about. Thq actually made an appearance in both Nicktoons Attack of the Toy Bots and SpongeBob SquarePants featuring Nicktoons Globs of Doom. God, that's a fucking title. In these games, you run around levels from different Nicktoons franchises, playing as some of your favorite characters, and it just so happens in 2 of the games, Tak is a playable character. Sorry, but I think this franchise might get its own video one day, so I'm also gonna hold off on talking about them too much. Okay, so we covered all the games he's in, but what else? Oh yeah, Flash games, of course. The one and only Flash game where Tak was the main character was Tak and the Power of Juju Moonstone Madness. It's a pretty basic game. You just ride on a boar along this track and try to collect enough moonstones to beat the level. I'm gonna be honest, I played this for a little longer than I needed to, because well, I didn't read the instructions, but nonetheless, there's 4 total levels in this game, but the difficulty spike skyrocketed in level 2, so I didn't make it past it. The game actually has a level editor. You can't do much other than select predetermined panels to fill your level with, but this would have been a pretty cool idea if you could actually place items and really make the level. But no, it's not that cool, but here's the level I made. You see, the trick is I use the same panel for every slide of the track, so I always knew what was coming. Now this is peak game design. There are 2 more Flash games called Nicktoons Super Stuff Mini Game Mania and Nicktoons Super Stuff Mini Game Mania 2. You can still find all these games online and play them, but I don't recommend the first mini game Flash game, as both these games are the same except the second one has more, so there's no reason to ever play the first one. The soundtrack in these games is pretty poppin' though. Nicktoons Mania is just a minigame collection where each of the games takes place in a different franchise. Tak gets, I think, one of the worst ones in the whole thing, where you just match expressions of a bunch of faces he's making. It does, however, have this plankton one, which fills me with fear. Now, before we get into the show, I've got one more thing to show off.
I'm loving it.
My friends and I are totally flipping for McDonald's Tech Toys, based on the Great Juju Challenge. I can only get one of my McDonald's Mighty Kids meal.
I'm loving it. Mass attack.
You know it. All right. Yeah, I got him. So at first I thought these guys were to promote the show, but evidently not. They're kind of lame as McDonald's toys are. He can give his little buddy a hug. Now, honestly, I'm a little disappointed in Tlaylock because he has a little light thing here, but it doesn't do anything. So I think this guy's just broken. But what are you gonna do? Locke, on the other hand, I mean, can you see this? I don't know how well that's picking up, but you pinch his arms together and he starts flexing. This shit is so goofy. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know what this guy's supposed to do either. His joints kind of click. I think it's supposed to be because he's a skeleton. But other than that, I think that's all this guy does. Now, of course, we got the big guy. You see this one's little button. He kind of opens his mouth. You know, there's not a lot of Tak merch to go around. And when I say that, I mean this is it. You get McDonald's toys. This company made no merchandise for this franchise. But luckily, there's 2 of them that stand out. I mean, here, check this out. That's pretty cool. Tak pretty much does the same thing, except he does a side flip. Sometimes you can get this guy to land on his feet. I've done this like 15 times. I think I'm done. But conceptually, these are kind of cool. The rest of them aren't that great. Okay. I've put it off long enough. Let's get into the TV show, Tak and the Power of Juju. Immediately, this show was a little jarring. You see, a lot of the voice actors from the games didn't make a return for the show. Now, I don't really have an issue with this. I believe the only characters who maintain the same voice actors are Dead Juju and Locke. I don't know how I didn't bring it up earlier, but Locke is actually voiced by Patrick Warburton. Most of you may know him from his role as playing this character.
Hey, Peter.
The first episode is about stopping the Woodies, and alright, this is immediately familiar. I'm glad that this is the enemy they chose to use in this series. With all these characters talking about them, I can't wait to see them, but first we need the help of a Juju to deal with this problem. Ah yes, the first Juju. That the psychic Juju. I guess they renamed him. Okay, I get that part of this character is that he's obnoxious, but him yelling the whole time is making it so much worse.
Look, I need to know how I can save the village from the Woody stampede.
Why would you want to do that? I just love the way you pupanunus scamper about. It makes all the Jujus chuckle.
Oh great, he's also a dick. Granted, he was in the games, but he didn't make fun of people for fearing for their lives and homes. He didn't even help. All he said is that they need to size them down. They decided the Woodies need to be lured away from town using the chicken suit. I hate this. First of all, Locke has a costume. He gets the lobster suit. So why wouldn't they put tack in it? The first episode really does feel like it's trying to cater to the people who played the game, but everything just seems completely off about it. Hopefully they at least get the Woodies right. Oh. Okay, cool. They didn't. Why are they 50 feet tall? These are the generic run-of-the-mill enemies, and they made them the size of fucking Whitebeard from One Piece. I want you to imagine a Mario cartoon, but the Koopas are the size of 20 Marios stacked on top of each other. Now in that scenario, that would be unacceptable, so why did they do it here? I understand that this is a relatively small property, but you don't have to change so much about it. So in the end, after dealing with the whole plan that doesn't work, Tak has the thought, hey, I was told to size them down. So he uses magic to size them down. I'm glad it took him all day to take what the Juju said literally. This first episode wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen by any means. It was just horribly mediocre, and now it's starting to sink in that there's almost 50 episodes of this, and I don't know how much I can take, but by all means, I'm going to try. Now, before we continue any deeper, I think it's important to break down the main cast. There are 5 characters that get more screen time than most, so let's get into it. Now, the first character is obviously Tak, our main character. First and foremost, he is a gigantic fuck up. A lot of plot points start with him making bad decisions, which happen usually because he's either selfish or incompetent. Something weird about this show is that Tak is the only human character capable of casting magic. Other characters can make potions, but straight up magic is reserved strictly for either Tak or Jujus. Tak is very much dumbed down from his video game counterpart. Now, to make up for the fact that Tak is an idiot, we have to bring in 2 characters. First is Tak's best friend, Jira. Jira is the second daughter of the Pupanunu chief. She is much smarter than Tak and usually has to be the one to knock some sense into them. Now, this is not to say she doesn't participate in his juvenile actions, because she obviously does. But she's more than likely going to be the one to call it out when things go too far. The next character to make up for Tak being an idiot is Jabulba. Jabulba in this show is the parental figure and teacher for Tak. Now, this can be a little confusing because, like I mentioned earlier, normal humans aren't capable of magic, but regardless of that, he is still able to teach Tak how to use it. For example, do you remember Jabulba Flea from Tak 2? So the concept of Jabulba turning himself into a flea is not really possible in this world. He would have to ask Tak to do it because Jabulba is literally incapable of doing so without brewing some sort of potion. I'm fine with this character being the caretaker and teacher, but don't you think he should be able to do what he's trying to teach? Moving on, we have Kiko, Tak's other friend in the show. He's shown to have skills in machinery, and also the way he talks is clearly trying to make him out to be like a relaxed stoner character.
Don't sweat it, Tak. I got exactly what you need right here. Pressure-powered sheep slinger. Check it.
Kiko honestly doesn't show up as much as the others, so there isn't a ton to say about him. He definitely feels very one note. And finally, we have the chief of the Pupanunu people, who is simply referred to as Chief. His character is not only that he's incompetent, but he is also reduced to an offensive stereotype of a fat person. Now, you may be wondering, where's Locke in this show? Now, I think that's a really good question, but sadly, Locke has been set to the side for these new characters. While he is in the show, Locke is not a part of the main cast. I assume it's because the show is already overloaded with dumb characters, so he simply got pushed to the background in most episodes. Okay, now that we have the cast at least somewhat covered, let's get back to the show. The second episode is about Locke lying about his amazing feats to the whole village, so he seems like a great hero. Now, we obviously know Tak is the actual hero of this story, but he gets jealous of Locke taking all the glory, so him and Jira devise a plan to recreate Locke's fake tale in real life. Locke obviously can't do what he claimed and gets banished from the village. Tak runs off to try to cheer him up, claiming that all he needs is the howl of the hero. Now, one cool thing about Locke's howl is that it seems they only recorded it once, because for the next 25 times he uses it, it's the exact same sound. I hope you like that noise, because like I said, it's the same thing every time. Locke heads back and the same storytale scenario happens again, and he still can't do it. But at least he's confident in himself this time. Okay. I obviously can't cover every single episode, so I'm only going to keep track of things that surprise me in a positive way or are probably just so awful I can't help but talk about them. Okay, so there was actually this kind of funny bit where Tak tries to summon rain with the spell but fucks it up so bad the clouds just plummet from the sky, crushing tons of people. So at least where I'm at right now, it seems that the overall plot is completely different. Tak isn't the warrior of prophecy, at least not yet. He's a shaman in training, which is a different feel, but not necessarily a bad thing. I think for an episodic show like this, that concept works completely fine. Tak is the student, while Jibulba is the teacher. The show does not follow the same canon as the games, so as much as I would like to try and separate them as two different things, I'm sorry I can't. I can't help it, okay? But going forward, think of Tak and the Power of Juju as an alternate universe to, well, Tak and the Power of Juju. God, I hate that they have the same name. This actually made it slightly more inconvenient to research, but whatever. Tlaylock shows up and they have renamed him. No more does the evil shaman Tlaylock exist. Now all we have left is Treylock. For the sake of my brain, I'm just going to be using the game name, but this change is just very confusing to me. Instead of being the main antagonist, he's just a manipulative scumbag. He's not threatening to kill Tak's friends, he's just using the village to make a shrine of himself, which comparatively isn't that bad. Well, I guess that kind of depends on what his regulations are for all this free labor. He ends up getting turned into a donkey, but, like, come on, he was a sheep for 99% of the second game. So far, I've remembered all of these episodes. I want to make it clear, I did watch some of this when it came out. I had already played, I think, all the Tak games before this came out, so a new show about this franchise was really exciting for me. Something that's kind of weird about this show is that the Jujus don't seem to be singular. Like, there are multiple Jujus. You first see this with Repulsive Juju, who is the most fucking disgusting character I have ever seen. I mean, just look at it. But at the end of his story, he's taken back home where there are more Repulsive Jujus. I thought these guys were supposed to be deities, kind of like gods, but no, I guess they're more like races. I'm willing to accept that there are multiple skeleton people, but I'm not ready for multiple dead Jujus. The one we already have is a lot. I think it's pretty obvious that this show is going to bring new Jujus in. I'm sorry I'm saying that word so much. I can't really think of a synonym for Juju. It feels really obvious when the Jujus are from this show compared to the ones they take from the games. Here's 2 from the games, here's 2 from the show. The designs on the show side are just so much more of, well, everything. They just have a lot going on. While we have these 2 on the screen, let's talk about their dynamic. So this is not Dead Juju in the show, he's Party Juju. There's an episode where he creates a party for Tak, but he isn't capable of making the party stop. Dead Juju is repeatedly making people almost party to death, but he can't help it. So he needs a whole second person to stop what he starts. So we have his girlfriend, Killjoy Juju, whose whole purpose is to end Dead Juju's parties. This is the least interesting way to deal with this situation. Instead of having, I don't know, Tak use his brain to figure a way out of the situation, oh, well, why don't we just summon the Juju whose whole point is to deal with this exact awful scenario? It feels insanely lazy, and I also don't appreciate the show's writers making Dead Juju basically the villain of this episode. Homie was just going to kill hundreds of people because he's incompetent and can't control his abilities. This is a character that we could literally take control of, and they just said fuck it and made him the bad guy. He isn't like mean or anything, but I don't know, man. What would you call him in a scenario where he is the main cause of the problem? Okay, I have to set this up some. So there's an episode where the Pupanunu village is being swarmed by bugs, so they have to reach out to the bug Juju for help, but he will bring the swarm back if the village doesn't perfectly perform his musical. Of course, because everybody is an idiot, they can't do this. The whole issue is resolved by this.
When I get through with you!
Monkey's foot, you twisted little nutcracker!
Okay, so good to know. I guess Jujus can be killed. Oh look, it's Belly Juju, that's pretty cool.
Pastries for me, with lime lizard jelly. They all have a home right here in my belly.
And they ruined him. He doesn't speak with his belly anymore, he just eats with it. He doesn't have his smooth, sophisticated words that I know and love. Why did they do this? This was the best one, and they completely ruined him. The rest of the episode was boring too, and he wasn't even involved. I'm sorry, I just feel so hurt by this. So there's an episode where the chief is getting completely overwhelmed by requests from the village people. Now normally this episode would be something that wouldn't stand out to me, but I'll explain why it did shortly. So Chief is trying to be hip with the kids, as they say, so that way he can relive a time where he didn't have so much responsibility. He goes from asking to have a sleepover to mooning his daughter and her friend. These two are obviously getting sick of the Chief's antics, and he cries to Tak so much that they determine it's best to turn him young again. This is how he looks. This shit is absolutely cursed. This is why the episode stood out. The rest of this episode is mostly just Chief not wanting to become an adult again because he enjoys being an infant. When the tribe inevitably starts to shut down, he learns to accept his responsibility as the leader of the village. Now, I wouldn't say this was a very exciting episode. I just wanted to show you all Baby Chief. I just can't get over this. I'm sorry. Now, I want to talk about the only episode where the main two characters are Tak and Locke. Locke is once again talking about his great feats to the village. He is boasting about how in the past he has challenged the mighty bird beast known as the Pang Tiddler. It is well known that the Pang Tiddler has a very majestic feather that the chief now wants. Locke has been tasked with the mighty feather quest, but Tak says he can't go alone because he believes that such a creature does not exist. Of course, this leads to him being chosen as Locke's partner for this journey. Tak and Locke now set out on this quest to find this beast. They actually immediately find it. It's just a little guy, until it turns around and turns out that everything Locke said about this creature was true. The bird ends up taking Tak's staff to his nest, but he won't be able to get it back himself, so he has to ask Locke for help. The remainder of the episode is simply Locke bossing Tak around. These characters just don't feel as endearing as they do in the games. There are multiple situations where Locke puts Tak in harm's way without a care in the world. Obviously, the main character ends up having to bail him out in the end. When they return to the village, Locke begins to give all the credit to Tak, but Tak interrupts him and gives Locke all the credit. I'm sure this episode was supposed to be a bonding moment for these two, but sadly, it just feels like it falls short. When during the whole journey, they have absolutely nothing nice to say to one another, it only comes at the end to create a happy ending. They didn't learn how to settle their differences at all during this episode. Okay, I've been struggling to write out this script. I've made it through most of the show at this point, and all I can say is that this is one of the most boring cartoons I have ever had the displeasure of watching. It's not like it's offensively horrible or anything, it's just offensively dull. There's a 50-minute special coming up though, so hopefully I can make it through that without wanting to cry. It's time for Tak and the Power of Juju, Destiny Schmestiny. Okay, a TV special. This might just be what this show needs. If this can move the story forward in any way whatsoever, that would add so much for it. So this story is actually a prequel to the entire show. We begin with Tak trying to do simple tasks for the village, but for some reason he can't really do anything correctly. Today is Tak's birthday, and Jabulba reveals that he doesn't actually know where Tak came from, and found him on the Juju altar. Now that Tak has gotten old enough, Jabulba has a special gift for him. It's a rock, but not just any rock. Now as a viewer, we immediately know this is the stone he has at the end of his staff to help him control his magic. Tak and crew decided if they want more answers about Tak, they need to head to the Juju shrine where he was first found. Upon arrival, the stone starts to glow and brings all of them into the land of the Juju. Now they understandably start to freak out at the sight of all these magic guys, so apparently this is the first time these characters learn about the Jujus. I guess it's a crime for them to be there because they immediately get sent to court. They say pupanunus are meant to stay out or else darkness Juju will cover the land in darkness. This is the reason why the Jujus have stopped helping out in the real world. We shortly find out Tak is the chosen one. Actually, supposedly this carrot guy is the chosen one, but honestly, I will be ignoring this character. We finally meet the big bad of, well, I guess the entire show. Spoiler alert, it doesn't get renewed for a new season. The bad guy is actually the conniving Travis from the Tak 3 game. I guess they had to use this guy because they already kinda fucked up with what they did to Tlaylock earlier this season. They end up retreating back to the Pupanunu village, but what's there when they arrive is all of their friends turned into stone statues. Darkness Juju isn't interested in the Pupanunus, he's after Tak's crystal. So now it's up to Tak to go back and face Darkness Juju. Back in Darkness's lair, we see him monologuing about Aurora Juju, his one true love. I suppose it's pretty safe to say this is the Moon Juju equivalent of the show. Dark Juju's goal is to run the world with fear, because, well, he's evil, I guess. Along with Tak's crew, they also bring Pugnacious Juju. Sorry I didn't talk about this guy before. He's a boxer. Okay, I think I've covered all there is about this guy. Jura and Kiko get separated from Tak by falling down a deep hole. Tak is then captured by Darkness, and it's revealed that Pugnacious Juju was actually Shelly, this nightmare creature. Shelly is pretty much just a little subordinate for Darkness. While Tak is locked up, Shelly walks in his room, where he then realizes that Tak isn't completely awful, then begins to regret the decision he's made by siding with Darkness. The staff will not work for this character, so he decides to torture Tak to figure out how it works. Here, it is revealed that Tak's mom is actually Aurora Juju. So my conclusion is that this guy must be Tak's dad because he said Aurora Juju was his fiancé. This is very quickly shut down. Darkness confirms that Tak's dad is indeed a Pupanunu. This isn't brought up again, so pick whichever character you want. I personally will say that his dad is Locke. You can't change my mind. We very quickly transition into the final battle.
Hey, buddy.
And then they all go home, and everyone lived happily ever after. As in sent to cartoon purgatory, cause this show quickly ended after this. That was a whole thing. It's safe to say, show's bad. I'm sorry, it's really boring. Something I want to talk about here at the end is actually, what is the possibility that Tak could return for a potential sequel, or just in anything at all in the future? And the answer to that is actually really obvious. Can Tak return? Probably not. No. In order for this character to make a return, Thq Nordic would have to do a remake the same way they did with Destroy All Humans, and the same way they did with SpongeBob. They would never outright just make a sequel. They have to gauge whether the audience is still interested or not. And to be honest, I really doubt it. A remake for games in a lot of scenarios is a way to kind of test the waters and see if this franchise is worth returning to based on sales. And the matter of fact is, if a Tak remake came out, it probably would not perform that well, realistically. Especially if it's just Tak 1. If it's just the first Tak game, we are completely fucked and this series will never come back. The luckiest we could potentially get is to get a trilogy like the Crash Bandicoot games, but like I said, I find that really unlikely. To put it simply, that new SpongeBob game, whatever it's called, I'll put it up somewhere, would not exist without the rehydrated remake. It simply wouldn't. I think it's really unlikely that that company would potentially just put out flat out a sequel. I think a remake is the best opportunity we have. Now, if Tak were to come back, I think there's two case scenarios where that's possible. One is, like I said earlier, is they get remade in some way, shape, or form. Two, right, is he appears in that Nickelodeon fighting game. The devs of that game have gone nuts. Hey Arnold's not in it. Helga is. That's a good pick. But they picked Hey Arnold's grandmother over Arnold, which is interesting. So it seems like the devs of that game just kind of put in the cool weirdos. But potentially Tak could show up in that game as he is still a Nickelodeon character. And in the scenario where he does, and you want to see him come back, fuck it, even if you don't want to have the game, just buy the DLC. Just show that there is still interest in the character, and that's really all you can do. That is really all you can do. There's just not a world where Tak returns, probably period, to be honest. This franchise is most likely just dead. But the reason I want to talk about this is because I obviously really like it. I just made an over hour-long video about this series. This is by far the longest project I've ever worked on, and I think I really like how it turned out, so I want to talk about it a little bit. Like I said already, I think the best thing we can hope for is a trilogy like Crash Bandicoot. I think that's not going to happen. I don't think he's going to appear in that Nickelodeon game. I don't even think we're going to get a remake of Tak and the Power of Juju, the first one. But regardless, I'd like to see it. I hope I'm proven wrong. But I think it's finally time to wrap this up. If you enjoyed the video, a like, subscribe, and a comment would be much appreciated. If you don't know what to say, put in a sheep. I'll know what it means. There's hella sheep in this game. But I think it's time to wrap up, and thank you for watching.